You may have seen weird creatures that fight alongside the humans of the Imperium and said to yourself, "What gives? I thought the Imperium was incredibly xenophobic and abhorred aliens." Well, that just shows your ignorance brought on by your weak and fleshy body, because those aren't aliens. They are the members of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The Cult of the Machine are the red-robed cyborgs that work alongside the Imperium as its technicians, engineers, military suppliers, and scientists, although that word is despised by some of its members. They are heavily cybernetically augmented humans that worship technology and see the flesh as a weakness that needs to be removed through the implementation of machinery. When humanity fractured during the Age of Strife, the inhabitants of Mars saw that survival came from technology, and their reliance on it eventually evolved into a full-blown religion that they still adhere to 10,000 years later. Ever since, the cult has been led by a hierarchy of tech priests and strict teachings that have caused them to be both technologically advanced and technologically stagnant. To the Adeptus Mechanicus, all knowledge granted by their machine god, the Omnissiah, is already present across the galaxy. They simply have to go out into the Milky Way and search for it. They can never invent new technologies, because that would go against their god's grand design. Alien technology is also despised because it is considered impure, and there is absolutely no desire from a vast majority of tech priests to try and reverse engineer it. Pray to your machines, and they shall function once their machine spirits are appeased. Such are the ironic teachings of tech priests that see salvation solely through what humanity has created. Currently, the Adeptus Mechanicus function as rulers of various forge worlds throughout the Imperium. These worlds are planets that the Mechanicus have converted into massive, populace-abusing factories that churn out the tools of war and survival that the Imperium rely on constantly. Now, let's get into how the tech priests of the machine cult organize themselves into a society that feels alien even to the other humans of the Imperium. Target acquired. Help me! Servitors. The reprocessed human servants of the Imperium at large that have lost most of their humanity to be turned into tools of varying designs and functions. According to the laws of the Imperium and the Mechanicus, artificial intelligence is banned completely. Servitors are an imaginative way to get around this rule, as humanity is still able to have robotic servants, but now they operate through severely limited brains and augmetic replacements. Most servitors have their human base established through the use of vat-grown clones, but criminals are always available to undergo servitude in perpetuis. Servitors fall under the hierarchy of the Adeptus Mechanicus because the cult specifically knows how to produce them. In a sense, they have the process down to a mass-produced art. Servitors can be made for any task imaginable. More mindless servants are given the designation of monotask servitors, while those granted relatively higher brain function are known as multitask servitors. Monotask servitors can be found as simple laborers repeatedly doing tasks they've been assigned to for as long as their masters demand them. Multitask servitors are usually fitted with machinery that grant them the ability to do more than just one kind of job. It usually just depends on what augments they've been installed with. There were once a class of cyborg used by the Mechanicus known as tech thralls, but these appear to have been phased out towards the 42nd millennium. Servitors are not only a symbol of the Mechanicus's presence everywhere in the galaxy, they are also a grim reminder of what could happen to those who go against the word of the Emperor.
It is difficult to form ranks with legs like these. The Omnissiah tests me.
Skitarii. The cybernetically enhanced troops that make up the vast majority of the Adeptus Mechanicus's armies. Like servitors, these units are either vat-grown or natural-born humans that are heavily modified with augments that take away most of their humanity. Where they differ from each other is that members of the Skitarii legions are still capable of independent thoughts, and are able to make their own decisions should the opportunity arise. Tech priests who command them find this a necessary characteristic, as control over the Skitarii is not always possible in certain arenas of war, and they need to be able to think on their own should a tech priest not be present. Skitarii Alphas are designated as leaders of individual squads so that they can act more independently and share tactical data with their squad mates that adhere to a tech priest specifications. To become a Skitarii is to be chosen by the machine god itself, and this lesson is thoroughly drilled into new recruits as they undergo psychological conditioning and invasive surgery. This merging of man and machine creates a warrior that is completely loyal to the Mechanicus and will die for it even if the weapons they use slowly kill the wielder. Skitarii come in many different models for various scenarios of warfare, and they wield the best weapons that a soldier of the Imperium could only dream of using. Weapons that are out of reach of a common guardsman because they are Mechanicus exclusive, usually fused into the grip of Skitarii, making removal impossible, and the weapons usually put out large amounts of radiation. A Skitarii's augments can make it so that they are able to fight in nearly any environment. Not only are they soldiers, but they also act as bodyguards for survey teams and planetary security for Forge Worlds. Revered soldiers of the Mechanicus, the Skitarii are nevertheless seen as capable of being disposable by their masters.
Writing notes is such a chore when the lessons are in lingua technis.
Tech acolytum. The unranked members of the cult Mechanicus that are seen as having the potential to learn and understand the mysteries of the tech priests. Mostly chosen amongst the dregs of the Forge World societies, Tech Acolyta study the lower secrets of the tech priests. They learn the basics of how to interact with machine spirits and how the Mechanicus functions on a galactic scale. It is here that they begin to be indoctrinated into the Mechanicus teachings of flesh being weak, and they start to view their organic selves as non-pragmatic. The Acolyta work with the knowledge that they must prove themselves, or else they will be disposed of like the next piece of flesh that is ground up by the cogs of the Mechanicus. If an Acolytum is fortunate, they will gain an apprenticeship under a priest, or, even better, a Magos. Space Marines who are chosen to study under the Mechanicus are referred to by this title while under the priest's tutelage. Practically the only way to elevate oneself to a livable standard on a Forge world, the Tech Acolytum lives their life under the augmented eyes of their cyborg masters to scrutinize the most minor of flaws.
Lingua technis. How did I ever live with simple low Gothic?
Tech Adept. Proven, inducted members of the Adeptus Mechanicus that are able to brag as specialists in a given field. These people also make up a bulk of the ordained members of the cult. Tech Adepts, sometimes known as Tech Priest Adepts, mainly focus on any one given aspect of the sciences of the Mechanicus. They do this because showing skill and competence in this chosen duty will be the surest way to gain notoriety within the cult. The Tech Adept will be able to move on from basic maintenance and repair duties to more respectable roles like being a Texorcist or a Reclamator. It is also at this rank that the Mechanicus allows the budding Tech Priest to start modifying themselves with augments that are provided by the cult. Tech Adepts are also able to command various automata and use advanced Mechanicus weaponry, after a certain amount of training, of course. Adepts are mainly seen around public work sites and ship stations, doing the work that the Mechanicus don't mind being shown to the general populace. After all, why worry about the Mechanicus secrets being stolen when the average Imperial can barely work a cogitator? Transforming themselves to be closer to their machine god, Tech Adepts start to look less human as time goes on.
Armed with the knowledge and gifts of the Omnisaya.
Ordinary priesthood. The classification of tech priests that are relatively experienced members of the Mechanicus. Being more machine than human at this point in their lives, the tech priests devote themselves entirely to their purposes within the great work. The augments they equip themselves with can be an identifier for what roles they've decided to settle on for a large chunk of their lives. Whatever role they decide for themselves, their pursuit of knowledge will always remain as they work to learn as much as they can about the machine god's designs. It is not uncommon to find a member of the ordinary priesthood to have at least one piece of archaeotech, almost lost technology of ancient Terra, on their person. Their devotion to these inventions of ancient Terra pushes them to seek out lost artifacts at any cost, even waging wars to claim them. A member of the ordinary priesthood usually goes by another title that they are called due to their experience in their profession. There are many titles, such as Electro-Priest, Engine Seer, Trans-Mechanic, Rune Priest, Lex Mechanic, etc. Their knowledge of the different types of rituals needed to interact with the machines of the Imperium is vital to them, and Imperial citizens look to them as the masters of keeping industries moving and life support systems running. At this point in their lives, a tech priest communicates more like a machine than it does a human. Binaric and lingua technis make up the most of their conversations as they interact more with the other tech priests they surround themselves with, sometimes telepathically. They will even be able to make complex mathematical computations in their heads due to their augments, turning them into living computers. To those outside of the cult, talking to a tech priest is a trial of patience and a potential lesson of learning something you never knew about previously.
Come now, my friend. Why must you keep so many secrets to yourself? Your primitive brain won't comprehend them.
Ruling priesthood. The position that comes with a relative sense of real power and authority. Being able to command squads of Skitarii and Servitors while wielding archaic technology is one thing. But being able to place yourself in the inner politics of Forge Worlds, command your own Arch Mechanicus starship, and push the boundaries of acceptable conduct are all superior examples of power within the Adeptus Mechanicus. Being a member of the ruling priesthood means that your personal knowledge of the teachings of the Mechanicus has been broadened to such a degree that you could be considered a master of multiple fields of research and technology. Members of the ruling priesthood are usually given 4 different titles based on their areas of expertise. Those that study the biological sciences are known as genitors and use their knowledge to create cybernetic amalgams and learn the secrets of Xenos weaknesses. Artisans are masters of constructing powerful devices that are used by some of the Imperium's most decorated soldiers. The logic-focused and information-hungry Logi thrive off of seeking what is unknown to the cult, and they are very thorough in finding any knowledge they wish to know. The masterful Magi have augmented their bodies so thoroughly that they are seen as paragons to the tenets of the machine cult, and they are looked at as the true masters of whatever field they represent. An interesting fact about the Magi is that they undergo the rite of clear thought, a surgical procedure that replaces a hemisphere of their brains with cybernetics in order to remove any distracting thought of empathy, care, and other emotions that get in the way of logical thinking. The ruling priesthood members barely resemble what they once were as humans, as they have replaced almost every part of their organic bodies with augments, save for the majority of their brains. Brains being the thing they find to be the red line between pure human intellect and abominable artificial intelligence. Teachers and role models for those below them in the hierarchy, the ruling priesthood monitor and make sure the Adeptus Mechanicus continues to preach its faith and purpose.
The Fabricator General proclaims that the Forge World needs to make more Toastariums!
Fabricator Locum. The second in command of a Forge World. They work under a Forge World's Fabricator General, and their role usually consists of monitoring the world's output and tithe adherence. Assumedly, only the most agreeable of tech priests with long lives of augmentation and experience within the cult are chosen by the Fabricator General to be given the rank.
Tithe demands met. Skitarii harvest met. Continued subjugation of the populace met. The machine continues functioning as it forever should.
Fabricator General. The leader of an entire Forge World. As such, they have a massive influence among not just the Mechanicus, but the people of the Imperium who rely on whatever exports their world manufactures. Making their domains into models of the machine god's design is something they always strive for, especially with no regard to the fleshy citizens under them. Fabricator generals rule worlds of fire, molten metal, pollution, and crushing efficiency. The crazy thing is, the treaty between Mars and the Imperium allows them to do this because the end result is all that is important. God Emperor help those who are unfortunate enough to have been born on a forge world.
I am the Omnissiah's word. My voice is his law.
Fabricator General of Mars. The highest individual in the cult Mechanicus. The leader whose authority is second only to that of the Omnissiah. Just like the other pinnacle spots of authority in the Imperium, the Fabricator General of Mars is also a member of the High Lords of Terra. However, this seat is one of the few permanent seats of the Council. Originally, this was an ambassadorial role for Mars during the time of the Great Crusade. Now, it is the near supreme authority of the Adeptus Mechanicus. They are the leader of Mars, the greatest forge world in the galaxy, and they also lead the Synod of Mars. The Synod of Mars is the ruling body of Mars that also legislates the entire cult. The Fabricator General of Mars is one of the few people to be allowed into the Emperor's throne room so that the Golden Throne can receive routine maintenance. This position is a lifetime appointment that can only be transferred once the current Fabricator General dies. Since the job usually involves them being at the center of some of the cult's most extreme projects, these can have an unusually short career. Stewards of the Omnissiah's will, the Fabricator General of Mars sees themselves as a prime cog in the works of the great machine that is the universe. This was my lore video on the hierarchy of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I thought it was interesting that even though the Mechanicus views basic humans with indifference, they still find a way to put them on the ranking as servitors and cyborg soldiers. I plan to do another video one day going over the notable careers a tech priest can work in. It should be interesting to learn more about how the crazy machine cult can be both technologically advanced and backwards at the same time. Thank you all for joining my channel this year to hear more about my interest in Warhammer 40k lore. I promise next year we'll have even more interesting topics to cover, so happy holidays and happy New Year's.